a lot of us have either highly suspected or known since day one of the Benghazi attack in 2012 on September 11th, what happened there. See, once you understand that this president and Hillary Clinton had hired Al-Qaeda to take down the Gaddafi regime in Libya, once you know that, and then once you understand that that venture was over and the new venture was going to be to try to do the same thing in Syria, then you also know that when Ambassador Stevens is operating as a gun runner, it became pretty clear to a lot of us who look at this stuff on a daily basis exactly what happened. The Islamic radicals whom Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama hired to take down with U.S. help, with NATO help, to take down the Gaddafi regime, were very upset having their weapons picked up and shipped to other Islamic radicals in Turkey to mount an offensive against the Assad regime. And that is why they attacked, undoubtedly. Now, the question may still sit in some people's minds, why Obama and Hillary took down the Gaddafi regime. Well, that was pretty simple too. Gaddafi was the head of the African Union, and he was working to try to aid Africa, the African nations, to gain a certain degree of prosperity. And so he had proposed an African currency. See, it all gets back to money again. An African currency that was gold-backed, that all of the nations in Africa would use, and therefore none of the nations in Africa would consent to sell their resources, of which Africa's got probably more in the way of natural resources than any continent, or at least that are accessible. They would not sell their resources for mere paper printed out of the air, meaning Federal Reserve currency. Well, when the bankers and the military-industrial complex understands that they can no longer buy oil, buy diamonds, buy any of the African resources by simply printing money out of the air and borrowing it into existence, but we're going to have to use gold and buy their currency in order to buy it, that was not going to work. So Gaddafi had to go. That's why Hillary and Barack Obama took Gaddafi out. But they left a vacuum in there, and the vacuum has been absorbed by the same people that they had who took down Gaddafi. And it has multiplied and has gotten worse and worse and worse, and now Libya runs on Sharia law. So now they're looking at trying to go back in there again. And if Hillary gets back in, then that's what will happen. We'll go back in there again until we can at least control the environment to be able to extract the resources of Libya as well as the rest of North Africa. And so all of that was the genesis of ISIS, because it's all the same people, it's all the same mercenaries. It doesn't matter what you call them. You can call them Al-Qaeda, you can call them ISIS, you can call them Jabhat al-Nusra. It doesn't matter. They're all being paid to do what they're doing over there. So I told you all that to tell you this. So 2 years ago in September, actually it was in August, I go to a town hall meeting with Rob Woodall. Rob Woodall is the speaker there, my U.S. representative. And somewhat rhetorically, not expecting an answer, I'm sure, he throws it out there to the crowd. Well, what would you do about ISIS? Well, there were various answers, that most of which were along the lines of, I'd bomb the shit out of them. well, maybe that is the thing to do, ultimately. But when everyone else was done, I stood up and I said, Congressman Woodall, our Arab allies are funding ISIS. I told him it was the Saudis and the Qataris that are funding ISIS. So the first thing that you do in order to destroy ISIS is to remove their funding. And so if the Saudis and Qataris are funding them and we have control over the currency that they're using, because every Federal Reserve transaction flows through the United States, you just stop the transactions. And an army operates on funding. So that's the first thing that you do. Stop their funding. And he told me that he was not going to respond to such an un-American accusation. And I told you that to tell you this, that in the Wikileaks dump today, here it is, we have Hillary Clinton's campaign manager admitting that the Saudis and the Qataris were funding ISIS. Now, I'm not going to receive an apology, but today I'm vindicated, and I'm trying to help you understand that we're all being taken advantage of. This world is spinning out of control by a bunch of demons, thieves, world-class criminals, murderers, war criminals. That's who's in charge of the United States government at this point. And if we don't get Donald Trump in there, then this is it. I don't believe there's going to be another presidential election ever if Donald Trump is not elected. So take it for what it's worth from me. I've been right in everything I've ever said. Everything I've ever put out there to the people for them to understand, I've been right about. And I keep, every time a new item comes up that I was right about years ago, and it's being pointed out today and proven today, I put it out there for people. I'm right. So you libertarians out there, you know, you want to vote for Gary Johnson, I can't stop you. But if Hillary Clinton happens to win, she becomes president of the United States, then you just gave her the keys to the United States, and you just gave her the keys to your own demise, because that's what's going to happen. I've been right this entire time. Trust me. Trust me.